It's time somebody talked about the real information on more government spending. It's a little bit late right now. It's about 10 o'clock over here. And it's bothering me. And I wanted to go live and talk about this because I just don't hear the real information out there. I hear regurgitated information talking about the stats of these things. It's not talking about what happens behind the smoke and mirrors of it all and what the costs of all of this spending really is. So it's again, I've made these videos a few times. This is the new thing that I'm going through YouTube, and it's now a bunch of different videos, stimulus package, fourth stimulus package. Are you going to get your $1,400 check? Did you pay your taxes in time? Because if you paid your taxes in time, now you get rewarded with a $1,400 check, but you had to pay your taxes in time to get the $1,400 check. Did you hear Biden's going to do a new $6 trillion, budget change, on Friday? He's going to try to do that, and he's going to point out everybody that disagrees with it. And I just see these same videos and the same information out there. I'm not going to go over the stats in this video. I'm going to go over the real information that nobody seems to be talking about, or there's very few of us talking about it. Before I go into that, I have to say this is just for education, entertainment purposes based on my opinion. So disclaimer, none of this information is to be taken as fact, just entertainment, education purposes. Disclaimer. The more the government spends, the more strings get attached to us in the terms of being a puppet. In my personal opinion, if you trust the government to keep spending, I will easily beat this argument. It's rather than dance around it all, I'll just say exactly how I know personally, in my opinion, that they don't care about the poor and they don't care about the middle class, because I know the wealthy in the country have assets. What happens when you dilute the dollar and you print trillions upon trillions upon trillions, and you hide that behind the guise of a $1,400 check, a $1,400 check? Look, here's a fish. We're not going to teach you how to fish. We already have our fishing. We're already fishing with multiple lines in the ocean right now. We're not going to teach you how to fish, but we'll give you a little bit. We'll give you a little fish here. Here's 1,400. But really, where the big fish are and what's really happening is the people who are really fishing already have the money. They already have the assets. They already have it. So realistically, I should be stoked about this because I'm lined up with silver. I'm lined up with Bitcoin. I'm lined up with platinum. I'm lined up with gold. I have friends that are in real estate and have a lot of real estate where they've parked their money into. They should be stoked, because the prices of all finite things, all limited things, is going to skyrocket because it's going to cost more dollars to buy assets. And by the way, this is a plan to help. Like, this is the way that it was on the New York Times. I'd have to pull up the article to get it exactly correct, but it said something along the lines of this is going to help the U.S. be more competitive. Really? How foolish do they think we are? It's going to make us more competitive by diluting our dollar. While we're suffering in an economic crisis, by diluting our dollar more, that's going to make us more competitive. Oh, really? Interesting take on that. Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. No, what it's going to do is anybody that has assets is going to get even more wealthy, while the poor who want to become wealthy, because that's what this country was all about. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. You weren't entitled to a check. You were entitled to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And that was beautiful and brilliant. But for some reason now they go, okay, well, let's just print a bunch of money. You want to know how I know for a personal, I want to say for a fact, but I've already said the disclaimer, so I can say whatever. If this is the one reason that just ends all debate against it. If the government really cared, they wouldn't tax us. If they could print as much as they want to print, and they're saying they're going to have a deficit of over $1 trillion for until 2031. That means they can't balance their checkbooks for 10 years. Yeah. And if they really cared, when you get a W-2, when I was a waiter, I'd get a W-2. And I'd go through my W-2 and go, how much money did they take out of my checks? Social, medic, what is all these? They took so much money out of my check. Imagine if none of that money was automatically taken out of your W-2. None of it was taken out. It was all there. You got the whole check. Not a dollar was missing. Would that be a little bit better than $1,400? Because I think it would be. Even if you made, I think in total, if you get two $1,400 checks, let's say in 2021, say you even got 3 or 4, right? You're talking about roughly 7,000 at best. And it's not even that, it's probably only 2. So 2,800 in 2021. You have that much coming in. How much, if you made 10,000 a year, that's setting the bar pretty low. If you make 10,000 a year, less than 1,000 a month, you'd be very close to saving that much in taxes. So let's say 20, 30, 40,000 a year. How much money do you get taken out of your W-2? Is it more than 2,800 per year? What would happen to the American economy if they just didn't tax us? Do you want to know even more detail? They take in roughly 3 to 4 trillion. In 2019, they took in 3.5 trillion in revenue from taxes, the federal government. They took in 3.5 trillion in 1 year. So in less than 2 years, they've managed to spend roughly 15 trillion and counting. So in a year and a half, over 15 trillion, somewhere in that 15 trillion. We don't really know because they say 6 trillion is going to be what this proposal is, but we all know it's going to be more than that. The amount of spending that they've done, let's say 15 trillion. Let's just put the number there at 15 trillion. If you're taking in 3.5 trillion per year, but you spend 15 trillion, why not just not have anyone have to pay taxes for 5 years? It'd be roughly the same amount. But oh wait, you spent that in less than 2. You could have just not taxed the citizens for 5 full years. What would that do if you didn't tax the citizens? Would it make them work harder? Would it make them go, wow, I keep my whole check? The whole thing. You don't say, I don't have to deal with a CPA and all these, that's my nails on the chalkboard. All the boop, 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 boop. I don't have to deal with all that. Oh my gosh, yeah, I'm going to start a business. I can afford to start a business. This is amazing. I know I can afford more employees. You know what? I've had this idea I've been working on. I can't believe they're not going to take anything from me anymore. I don't have to deal with any of this. I'm just going to build some stuff. That would make an economy thrive. But that just makes too much sense, right? Because if they cared, and by the way, you get $1,400 after you prove that you paid your 2020 taxes. Interesting. So if you're suffering and you don't have enough money to pay your taxes and you're struggling right now, you get the incentive. So say you owe them $5,000, but you really don't have the $5,000 ready and you did an extension or something like that, right? Well, when you give us the $5,000, we'll give you that $1,400 for you. We got you. And excuse my anger about this because it just bothers me because it's such there's so much smoke and mirrors going on where there are obviously people struggling extremely bad right now. And what I want to do is spread real information rather than regurgitating the stats of, oh, well, it's going to be 6 trillion and Republican representative of this place said this, and that, and Democrats said this, and that. I'm not going to do any of that. I'm not going to do all that statistical, and the different drama nonsense. I'm just going to say what's really going to happen here. And in the position that I'm in right now, in collectibles, in silver, in precious metals, in Bitcoin, it's perfect case scenario for that, right? And that's why I'm so big in it right now. I'm not in any stocks. I have absolutely 0 stocks. What would be a crazy situation is if the stock market falls, everybody thinks the stock market's going to go up because all of this money's got to go somewhere, right? But what if the stock market falls? What if things correct? And then on top of it, you have a dollar crash. So right now, the dollar is just, I don't know if people are noticing this, but it's just teetering on 90 right now, the dollar index. Check the dollar index, look up the dollar index and watch that chart very close. The dollar index is basically what other currencies value the dollar. And right now, it's looking pretty weak. It's sitting there teetering at 90. And are we supposed to believe that the dollar is going to get stronger because of this? It's going to get more competitive? You got the Chinese yuan having a digital currency coming out. They actually make stuff over there. They actually have an economy that produces things. They don't just consume like our American economy. we're just consuming, and we're rewarding unemployment and we're rewarding lack of economic production. You're getting rewarded for that over here. And you think that we're going to keep reserve currency status by doing this? All of this news, you think all the other countries of the world are going to look at that and go, wow, look, they're just going to print a bunch more money and they're just going to keep a deficit until 2031. Interesting. Yeah, let's go and buy some bonds. Yeah, it's going to make us competitive. Yeah, people are really going to want to go buy some bonds. What did Ray Dalio just say? Ray Dalio just said, he was critical of Bitcoin. He was like on the fence about it. He goes, I'd rather buy Bitcoin than bonds. Right? That's a very intelligent billionaire right there, Ray Dalio. Who wouldn't want to have anything but bonds right now? Virtually anything. And what's even crazier about it, where do you put that $1,400 check? You go and put it in the bank, right? You go and you put it in the big banks, you put it in the commercial banks, and the audacity that the big banks are paying no interest. They don't even pay us a penny on the dollar. So the audacity of the big bank is paying no interest. They're not even giving us interest to compensate for the inflation that is happening because of them. So the inflation is happening due to all of this printing from the central bank, from the Fed. The commercial bank continues that dilution by giving out loans to their heart's desire, however much loans they want to give, because they don't even have to do fractional reserve banking anymore. It's at 0%, probably going to go negative pretty soon here. And they can do whatever they want. But so they're making all this money at the big banks, right? All of this money being made. And meanwhile, they can't even give us interest to compensate for the inflation that they create. Like the audacity of Jamie Dimon, Chase Bank, and all of these big banks out there to not even, and I'm not talking about a CD either. In a CD, you don't even get more than 1%. I think you can't even get 1% with a CD. I'm not talking about a CD or locking up the funds. I'm talking about a checking account. If you put your money in a bank, they should be willing to give you an interest rate to compensate for the inflation that they've created. If they say inflation is 2-3%, I doubt it. Probably more like 10-15%, maybe 20%. Say it's 3%. They should at least be paying a bare minimum of 3% to keep the ice cube of the dollar that you keep with them frozen. Because right now, all they do is because we're so kind and we give you a platform to send a wire transfer and document all of your things and give you a little debit card, a cute little piece of plastic for you to buy stuff with. You know, we do a lot for you over here at the bank, so we're not going to give you any interest for your money. We're just going to give you not even a penny on the dollar, fractions of a penny on the dollar, and just give us a free loan. Oh, you want a loan from us at Chase Bank? That's going to be 8-12%. But I've let you hold my money for so long, and I don't get anything from you guys. Oh, no. You want money from us, 8-12%. And we created this problem in the first place. But it is what it is. It's sickening. It's sickening. And yes, the people who have capital and know how to invest it and know how to shell their assets, and shell their dollars in assets so they don't get diluted, those people are going to benefit from this. Look at what's happened here. The more money that's printed, the divide, it isn't helping the poor get closer to the middle class or the middle class get closer to the wealthy. That's not helping it. It's just making the divide even further. It's going to be a curve like that. That's what they want. The curve is it's like somewhat like this, but they want it to be that. They want the poor over here and then just a line to uber rich. That's what the new graph is going to be. So, am I in favor of this spending bill or am I in favor of the stimulus package? I think it's the most ridiculous thing ever. And I'm sickened as somebody in his 20s. It makes me sick that the older generation is allowing this can to be kicked on the youth. It's sickening. There's no way out of this. What are they going to do? They're going to monetize their TikToks? Is that the way we're going to get out of our national deficit? Like, how is this going to happen? We're already almost at 30 trillion on the deficit. I can't even believe that number is real. Nearly 30 trillion on the deficit. So what's the end result here is get out of the dollar. Head for the hills, get out of the dollar, buy silver, buy Bitcoin, buy gold, anything but dollars and bonds, anything. It's ridiculous. And what I think could happen here is, due to there not being many options on where to park this money, the stock market might pump in the near term. And you see these like the AMCs and the GameStops, and it's kind of like exhilarating for people who are just learning about investing. They're going to go, okay, let me get in the stock market. Imagine the stock market has a brief pump because of this, and then imagine we actually have a real correction in the stock market, which seems wildly overdue. I mean, we're trading collectibles in the stock market. There isn't any price to earnings ratios that make sense. These are all ridiculously overvalued collectibles. It's just to say, hey, I have a Tesla stock. And then, by the way, they'll dilute it on the dilution. So they're going to do secondaries. So their stock pumps, all these companies are looking to, like, this is what's literally happening. What did Tesla do to get that $15 billion on their balance sheet? They did a big secondary, multiple secondaries, diluting their shares. So the dollar's diluted that you buy the Tesla stock in, then the executives of Tesla will dilute the shares further and put more shares on the market. And then on top of that, they're going to take that capital from their shareholders of their wildly overvalued stock, and that's valued in inflated, diluted dollars, and they're going to take that and go buy Bitcoin and actual assets with it. I see that happening at scale. Not just Tesla. I mean, all of these companies, I said it way back. I don't know if GameStop has done it. I haven't been looking into the details on it, but if I was AMC or GameStop and my stock got pumped to a level it didn't deserve, I'd be looking to do a secondary, take the cash out of the market and park it into assets, buy real estate for the company, build an asset resume for the company. I see that happening at scale and continuing to happen. And if that is the case, that's dilution on top of dilution. The dollar's diluted, and then the stocks are going to get diluted on top of their lofty levels already. Then what happens if there's another aspect to the dilution? So the dollar's diluted, the stock gets diluted by the executives of the stock by issuing more shares. And then what happens if the stock corrects and then the dollar corrects at the same time? Because the dollar doesn't deserve to be at 90 right now. The dollar should be somewhere around 40, 50, in my opinion, after all this dilution. If you've added 40, 50% to the monetary supply, then it would imagine that your dollar should be valued in half, right? It seems pretty simple to me. If you have this many dollars and you add another 50% of them, that would mean the value of the dollar was diluted by 50%. This isn't rocket science. I'm no Janet Yellen or Jerome Powell. I'm no poof Powell myself. I don't just get a poof money into thin air, but seems pretty simple. You'd imagine that to go down to somewhere between 75 and 50. That's where it should be based on all this dilution happening. However, the dollar's sitting there at 90. So what that tells me is that the dollar could easily correct. Now, what is the stock market valued in? They're valued in dollars. All the stocks are valued in dollars. They're not valued in Bitcoin. They're not valued in silver. It used to be backed to silver and gold prior to 1971. The stocks used to be silver and gold, but it's not that anymore. Go check the debt clock. Per ounce of silver right now, it's like 5,000, 4,000 something, 5,000 per ounce of silver based on how many dollars they've printed. The dollar to silver ratio is like outrageous. So, how do you really help the poor and the middle class? You teach them how to fish. That's how you really help people, because it doesn't really feel good when somebody gives you a fish and says, here's your fish, you get this much dinner. It's like, no, I want to eat I want a steak, I want to work for it. I want to buy my groceries. I want to make a company. I want a nicer car. I want to build myself up here. This is the US. This is the US of A, right? This is where the life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. This is where people go for the American dream. The American dream isn't to get a $1,400 handout. It isn't to dilute our currency. It isn't here to make it so that you are compensated for sitting on the couch getting unemployment. I wouldn't want to go to work too. If they were paying me more money to sit on my couch than to actually work, me personally, I'd be taking that money and building a business with it because I just know who I am. I would take that capital and be like, wow, I have, unlimited time now. But that goes into another point. Guard your time with everything. You must protect your time with everything. What is money? Money is stored time. Money is stored time. If you're willing to get paid $1,000 a week for 60 hours of your time, Say you're on salary and you work 60 hours a week and you make $1,000 a week. Well, that would mean that your time, 60 times 4, that's 240 hours per month you're giving up for $4,000. 240 hours of your time for $4,000. When you multiply that even more, you realize how much hours of your time are given up. Money is time, and is time happiness? I'll let you be the judge of that, but I would consider money to be time, and it's basically stored time. So when you have somebody or some entity that is so outrageously printing time, that's like it's, in my opinion, a crime on humanity. There's no better way to phrase that. It's like it's the ultimate evil to do when people are working and saving their time in the form of a savings in dollars. And that's your stored time. When you say retirement, oh, I'm saving for my retirement. I got my 401k, I'm saving for my retirement. Or that's my savings for my retirement. I need $1 million something to retire, right? That's when you say retirement, you mean stored time. I have 40 years of stored time here so I can retire. I have $1.2 million here because that's 40 years of my current lifestyle of stored time, and I can retire on this much. But when they dilute it, no human, no entity should be able to dilute a currency and steal people's time from them. The more and more that they print, this shouldn't even be allowed. That's why the dollar was back to gold and silver. It shouldn't be allowed to print your way out of a problem because, in my opinion, it's outrageous. It's stealing people's time from them. I have no better way to phrase it than that. And if they really cared, they just wouldn't. Why are we being incentivized to pay our taxes in 2020 just so that we can get this $1,400 measly check? I know $1,400 is a lot to a lot of people, but if you get a W-2, look at your W-2, look at your check every month and see how much is taken out of that check. I know at the end of the year you say, "Oh, well, they pay me back." No, that's a facade. That's not real, because you gave them that money. You just got used to that money being taken out of your check. Every single time you get a check, I mean, every single person, every one of us. When I was a waiter, I'd look at every check. You get a lot of tips as a waiter, so it would like go into your payment check, and you would see how much money was taken out of it. And I would look at it and be like, geez, this check was supposed to be $4,000 and I got $2,000, or I got $1,600 because of the tips that I claimed on. I could have kept, $3,000 something from this. Where did it all go? $2,000. Where did they spend my $2,000? I could use $2,000 this month. Where did they go? Not only that, but it would just, if I didn't have to pay, if I had no taxes for 5 years, which is actually, I believe that might be even saving money based on how much that they've spent. Let's just say 3 years. 3 years of tax revenue would be less than 10 trillion for them. Or somewhere around 10 trillion, like right at around 10 trillion would be 3 years of no tax revenue at all. Is that up for debate? Anybody in this live stream right now, is that up for debate at all? That would you rather have 3 years of not having to pay any taxes at all, the ability to start a business and own 100% of the profit, never have to see a CPA for 3 years, not have to deal with any of that for 3 full years, or get these two $1,400 checks? Is that up for debate? Does anybody? But guess what? They would actually have saved roughly $5 trillion, if not more, if they did that instead of what they did in this past year and a half. It's been a year and a half. You could double that amount of time to 3 years, not have to pay taxes for 3 years straight, and they would have saved over $5 trillion doing that. And look at some kid that used to be homeless, that used to live in this warehouse behind this door right here, is saying that I'm no Jerome Powell. I just know what it's like to start a company from nothing. I just know the pain it takes to build one, and having somebody constantly digging in your pocket, having to pay rent. I wanted to build my company so bad that I said to myself, you know what? I can have an apartment or I can get a warehouse. I'm living in the warehouse. making my own shower. I'm buying one of those showers off Amazon and I'm making my own shower. I'm living here in the warehouse. I did that for 5 years straight. 5 years straight. And so what I think about is I think about the days when I didn't have very much and I go, I would rather just share the real information so that people who aren't wealthy, the people who are poor right now, how do you get them to prosper? How do you get them to survive these economic times? You teach them. You teach them the way so that they can teach their friends the way and they can employ more people that they know. You don't give them a $1,400 check, dilute their currency and dilute their savings and take their time from them and then make it seem like that's a competitive thing for the U.S. to do. The U.S. is going to lose its reserve currency status at this rate, probably a lot sooner than my estimation. I thought it was going to be around 5 years, but I would imagine with this going on and this kind of printing, I mean, imagine this. I know everybody, you know, I like to consider myself very patriotic. Obviously, I haven't served or anything like that, so I'm not as patriotic as, you know, the military, and I, you know, respect to you. But I like to consider myself somebody that believes in the Constitution, somebody that's proud to be an American. I'm a libertarian. I believe in less government, smaller government. If I was a different country, I would be very annoyed by this. I'd be very bothered by this. You basically look at the person. The U.S. is kind of like the Kardashians or something, driving around in Range Rovers on credit cards and doing whatever they please. And then not only that, and I know that there's other people there's people in the live stream here that are probably in different countries. And I'm sure they can relate to this where they think, oh, American, those are the Kardashians over there. They just drive Range Rovers and all play with credit cards and, you know, just use a bunch of other people's money and stuff and just act like they're the kings and queens of the world. Oh, the Americans. You know, that's the image. And then if you already have that image and your country is the reserve currency, the number one, and you got Powell boasting about it from his pedestal. You know, heavy lies the crown, right? He's boasting on the pedestal going, oh, well, we're the reserve currency of the world. Well, we'll always be the reserve currency of the world. How do you feel if you're China and your economy is producing and producing and producing and producing, and meanwhile, you've been accepting a diluted currency for your economic output while the U.S. is not producing anything and getting rewarded to sit at home and then diluting their currency, boasting that it's going to make them more competitive. Wow, got to remember, we're the reserve currency. So if we dilute our currency, that is everybody getting diluted because we're the reserve currency. It's like it's genuinely like the current leadership wants to lose the reserve currency status. It's like I'm wondering, like, if I had planned some weird game of chess and I said, how could I do everything in my power to, I'm really bothered. It's when I hear about, I guess on Friday, we're going to hear about this new budget plan and we're going to hear about how much money is going to get spent and all of this. And I should be excited, right? I should get excited about this. I'm going to make a lot of money off of my assets, but I would rather share the real information and try to help some people with this. And I hope this information does help you. I hope it helps you in some way. But that's all the things I really wanted to talk about in this live stream. I know that it's a really touchy subject to talk about this, and I just felt like dropping this video. So hopefully it does help you in some way. If it does, please do consider subscribing to the channel. This is the type of information that I post. I will see you all at the next video. Again, apologies if this gets me too passionate or you know, the subject gets me a little bit bothered here, but it does. So thank you very much again for being here. Signing out, and I will see you at the next video. Have a great night.